The Greek Achilles and Baldur, the same hero sung by two mythologies. Baldur and his ancient sample series, like Sir Orfeo and Orpheus. The series show the arguments and evidences about the reinterpretations of the ancient history by the bards of the Middle Ages. Introduction. Snorri Sturluson expounds that the Scandinavian mythology is about the Trojan War rightly in the preface of the Edda, also known as the Prose Edda, titled the Prologus. Quoted from the Prologus. Snorri's argument. According to Snorri, Troy, located in Turkey, lay at the center of the world and was a place more magnificent than any other. A king named Munon, or Menon, lived there, whose son was Tur, whom we know as Thor. His descendant was Odin, who was a seer and sensed that glory awaited him in the north. Therefore, he set out from Troy and founded dynasties along the way, for example, in Germany, eventually settling in Scandinavia, where people began to revere them as gods due to their knowledge and strength. Quote from the Prologus. Near the middle of the world was built the house and courtyard that was the most famous of all. It is called Troy, and we call it Turkland. In this castle, there were 12 kings and one high king. One of the kings was named Munon or Menon. He married the daughter of King Priam, who was named Trojan. They had a son named Tror, we call him Thor. Later, he writes the following about Odin's migration. Odin possessed the gift of second sight, as did his wife. Through this science, he discovered that his name would be held in high renown in the northern part of the world, and he would be honored above all kings. For this reason, he desired to set out on his journey from Turkland. Why is this important? With this story, Snorri linked the northern peoples to classical antiquity. In his view, the name of the Aesir gods actually meant those from Asia, Aesir. Baldur and Achilles. The golden halls of Breidablik were never as cold as the marble shores of Thea, yet the silence in both was identical. It was the silence of a mother who had heard the gears of fate grinding and desperately tried to throw her own soul into the machinery to stop it. The loom and the forge. In the twilight of the north, Frigg, the Aesir's queen, often echoed in the folk memory of Freya, moved through the world like a desperate wind. She did not seek to harden her son, Baldur, with physical armor. Instead, she sought a cosmic treaty. She traveled to the roots of Yggdrasil and the heights of Asgard, extracting an oath from fire, water, iron, and stone: I will not harm the light of the world. Across the sea, in the salt-sprayed caves of the Aegean, the Nereid Thetis sought a different kind of immunity for her son, Achilles. Her method was elemental and violent. She dipped the infant into the black, frigid waters of the Styx, or in older whispered rites, she held him in the fire by night to burn away his mortality. The contrast was stark. Frigg sought to change the world to accommodate her son, Thetis sought to change her son to withstand the world. The blind spot. Every armor has its chink. For Achilles, it was the healed place where his mother's nervous, trembling fingers held him, blocking the magic of the river. It was a physical vulnerability born of a mother's literal touch. For Baldur, the vulnerability was the mistletoe. Frigg had looked upon the twig and deemed it too young to swear an oath. It was a cognitive oversight, a mother's tendency to overlook the small, seemingly insignificant threat while guarding against the giants. The prophecy fulfilled. The tragedies diverged in their execution but met in their grief. Achilles chose the short but glorious life, a fate Thetis knew and wept for every day he spent under the walls of Troy. She was his divine counselor, rising from the sea like a mist to comfort him, yet she was powerless to stop the arrow of Paris, guided by Apollo to that one unprotected spot. Baldur did not choose his end. He was the passive victim of Loki's malice. When the mistletoe pierced his chest, the best of the gods fell, and Frigg's world collapsed. She attempted one final bargain with Hel to bring him back, but the tears of the world were incomplete, thwarted by a single giantess who refused to weep. In the end, both mothers watched their sons, the most beautiful, the most capable, the most beloved, descend into the dark. Whether it was the grey fields of Asphodel or the frozen halls of Helheim, the Divine Mothers learned that even the blood of gods cannot wash away the ink of the Norns or the Moirai. Historical and literary sources. Ancient Greek sources, Achilles and Thetis. Homer, the Iliad, 8th century BCE. The primary source for the relationship between Achilles and Thetis, focusing on her role as his protector and intermediary with Zeus. Statius, Achilleid, 1st century CE. The most famous account of Thetis dipping Achilles in the river Styx to grant him invulnerability. Pseudo-Apollodorus, Bibliotheca, 1st to 2nd century CE provides the detailed mythological accounts of Thetis trying to make Achilles immortal through fire. Medieval Norse sources, Baldur and Frigg. Freya. Note, while the user mentioned Freya, the mythological role of the protective mother of Baldur belongs to Frigg. In medieval sources, these figures were often conflated or treated as distinct aspects of the feminine divine. Snorri-Sturluson, the Prose Edda, 13th century, specifically the Gylfaginning section, which contains the full narrative of Baldur's dreams, Frigg's oaths, and his eventual death. The Poetic Edda, 13th century manuscripts, based on older oral tradition, specifically the poems Völuspá, Prophecy of the Seeress, and Baldur's Draumar, Baldur's Dreams, which detail the cosmic significance of his death. Saxo Grammaticus, Gustodanorum, 12th century, a more euhemerized, historical, version of the Baldur myth, showing how the story evolved in the High Middle Ages.